All right, everybody, welcome back to Gaming News and Breakdowns. And in today's video, we have a very quick theory video going over what I believe to be proof that we are getting the third Darkness subclass in Destiny 2, specifically in the new expansion called Renegades. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we get into the actual theory, I do want to show you some proof that even if the third Darkness subclass doesn't end up in this specific expansion, it is still on the way, and Bungie is either working on it or have finished it and are waiting to ship it out. Now, what I'm showing you on screen is a screenshot from the first video that leaked the Red Darkness subclass, or at least the third Darkness subclass. I'm not sure when exactly this came out. However, I am sure that it was between Lightfall and the final shape, because this is what sparked a lot of people to believe that we were getting a third Darkness subclass in the final shape. However, that turned out to be prismatic. Interestingly enough, the video wasn't even showcasing the subclass itself. It was actually a promotional video for an emote that was releasing in the Eververse store. This video took place in the Helm, and that is why we can't actually see the color of the abilities. If you're unaware, when you're in a social space, the abilities will be fully charged. However, you can't use them and they are ultimately grayed out. However, with certain melee abilities and even grenade abilities, you can have multiple charges of them, and that is why you can see the bar under the melee here. So we can already tell that the Warlock will have a second melee charge in this subclass. And when you have a second melee charge, regardless if you're in a social space or in an actual game, the charge bar will always be the color of the subclass, and that is how we know that this subclass is actually red. However, leaks aside, Bungie themselves have teased multiple times that we're going to be getting a third Red Darkness subclass. I'm not sure which pyramid it is exactly, if it's the one in Savathun's Throne World or one of the raids or something else. If you know, you can tell me in the comments. But this mural appears in one of the pyramids, and we see a rainbow in the center. There's a lot of different visuals. However, on the right side, there are three vase-like shapes, or I guess just shapes in general. One of them is green, one of them is blue, and one of them is orange. Now, if you look at this and think about it, green represents strand, blue represents stasis, and a third red would represent whatever the third red subclass would be. Now, some people took this to believe that there is a third Darkness subclass on its way. Others didn't really buy it, and they thought that Bungie was just using similar colors. However, this isn't the only time that Bungie has done this. In fact, recently we were able to collect these gemstones in episode Echoes, and each one seems to represent a different subclass. On the left, we have a dark purple, a yellow, and a light blue for Void, Solar, and Arc. In the center, we have a rainbow, which is for Prismatic. And then on the right, we have a dark blue and a green for Stasis and Strand. Additionally, some of the gemstones themselves actually represent the subclass they are within their shapes. For example, Stasis looks like an hourglass, and Stasis is the stopping of time, as well as Arc looking very similar to an Arc Soul that you can spawn in with the Arc Soul aspect. However, again, we have that gemstone on the right that is a tint of orange or red that does not have an equivalent subclass that matches with it. And so this is when we're going to start talking about my theory and why I think that the third Darkness subclass is going to be coming in Destiny 2 Renegades, based off of what we saw in the developer live stream last week. Now, I want you to look at this clip in the trailer. It might not be obvious what you're looking for, however, I'll explain after the clip has ended.
You are supposed to protect the people, not rule them. The time of guardians as shepherds of humanity is over.
No!
I've been waiting so long for this. Dredge and hope.
Now, what we just saw was the opening scene from the Renegades trailer, and it showed the Death Star-like structure or super weapon that the Barrett Imperium is building, destroying the Traveler. Now, after that, we also saw a village, and the village is being taken over by this red mist. Now, you may be asking, why does this matter when we're talking about the new Darkness subclass? Yes, the beam that was shot out of the super weapon was red, but so is everything else that has to do with the Cabal. That's their entire identity, is being red. And yes, that is true. However, this is where being a Star Wars fan really helps understand what is going on within this expansion. So, if you're unaware of the Death Star in Star Wars, it is a planet killer, obviously, and what a lot of people don't know is that the beam is actually powered by kyber crystals. Now, if that sounds familiar, kyber crystals are the crystals that power up the Jedi's lightsaber. In fact, it's what determines the blade of the lightsaber as well. If you have a blue crystal, it will be a blue blade. If you have a green crystal, the blade will be green, and so on and so forth. And so, while the kyber crystals have no appearance in the Renegade storyline, we are getting something called the Prismatic Blade. And listen to this clip taken from the developer live stream talking about the Prismatic Blade specifically.
Yeah, so you're going to get the Praxic Blade by collaborating with Honor throughout the campaign. She's going to deem you worthy of earning it. You'll go on a cool little quest that I don't want to spoil to earn one for yourself. And then post-campaign, you're going to unlock the ability to customize it. You're going to be able to change out your dark matter crystals and change the color of the blade to match your personality. And you're going to be able to change a bunch of different mods and gameplay elements.
Now, as Tom Farnsworth stated in the developer livestream, we're going to be able to get the Praxic Blade through a quest and then be able to customize it through endgame activities, gaining different customization options, one of which he states is called the Dark Matter Crystal. And very importantly, this is what changes the blade color. So through this, we can pretty much determine that what powers the Praxic Blade and what essentially acts as the Kyber Crystal is called a dark matter crystal. And so this ties perfectly within the lore of Destiny of what is going on right now if we connect this to Star Wars logic, because by this logic, the Death Star structure or the super weapon that is being built by the Barrett Imperium is also being fueled by these dark matter crystals. Now, really quickly, I want to give a definition of what dark matter is because I don't want anyone to be confused. Dark matter has no connection to the darkness. It is simply another form of matter, at least in the Destiny universe, and the 9 are actually made of dark matter. And so this is why it fits so well within the story of Destiny, because if we are making our Praxic Blades and the super weapon is being powered by dark matter, this will tie in with the 9 and their plans regarding us and the rest of the universe. And so we get to the theory that I have in regards to the third darkness subclass. I believe that it will be creation and control of dark matter. Evidence of this is in that scene that I showed you earlier. This red mist is coming down upon this village. And I think that this scene is actually in a different cutscene than the scene right before it, where the Death Star is blowing up the Traveler. I believe that the Traveler getting blown up is a part of the Drifter's vision. However, I believe that this scene with the red mist actually happens in the actual reality of the game. And so shortly after this scene, we actually see the aftermath. We see Dredge and Bale walking through this village, and everyone is either gone, ran away, or deceased. And it's very possible that Revan himself is controlling this mist or has some control over this ability. And I believe that we, as the Guardian, are going to learn this ability as well, whether that's through 6 or whether we take the power from Dredge and Bale or some other means throughout the campaign. Now, other factors that kind of allude to this theory as well is that we know that the final reward for completing the campaign is not the Praxic Blade. We know that we're getting the Praxic Blade either in the middle of the campaign or after the campaign due to a exotic quest happening where we receive the blade and we're deemed worthy of carrying one. So with that being a reward from an exotic mission, we are unsure of what the final reward will be from beating the campaign. And to me, it just makes sense to be a subclass. At the end of Beyond Light and Lightfall, we received Stasis and Strand, and even the expansions where we didn't receive a new subclass, we received some exotic weapon. However, as mentioned before, the Praxic Blade is through a quest, and the only other exotic weapon that we know of is the Heirloom, which is Chewbacca's bowcaster, but that is the dungeon exotic for Equilibrium, which is the dungeon that is coming out during Renegades. So I know that this theory is a little far out there. However, there's one last thing that I think backs this up. And so, another YouTuber by the name of Aztecross, if you're a part of the Destiny community, I'm sure you've heard of him. He was one of the YouTubers that was lucky enough to go to Bungie and actually play Renegades early. And so, in his review of the game, this is how Cross started his video. Today, we're going to talk about Renegades, but I just want you to know that there's hope. That's what I want you to know from this. Now, what falls under the umbrella of hope? Use your imagination. I want you to think to yourself, what would give you hope in Destiny? And then I want you to go to the top of that umbrella and choose the thing that would give you the most hope. So just ponder that as we talk about Renegades. Ponder hope. I'm going to leave a link to Cross's video in the description. However, to me, that screams Darkness subclass. Cross himself has made videos on this leak that I mentioned earlier in the video and has come up with multiple theories as to what the subclass could be and when we're getting it. And I believe he or some other YouTubers have actually asked Bungie themselves when they're there, are we getting a third subclass? And so, while this theory does seem far fetched, as Destiny hasn't revealed anything regarding a third subclass coming in this game, I do believe that they're heavily teasing it. And I will say I believe that it will be coming during this expansion. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you guys agree, disagree, have your own theories, I want to hear everything that you have to say down in the comments. And yeah, look out for more Destiny videos coming out soon. I plan on releasing no commentary gameplay of Renegades when it releases. So if you're interested in that, definitely wait for release day and I will be posting that as soon as I can. And yeah, other than that, I hope you all have an amazing day. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I hope to see you in another video. Take care, guys.